episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
Today's our last day of requests for this month, November being request month this year. And this one comes from Jordyn, loyal listener Jordyn, who's actually guested on our show.
Yep.
Her request was The Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, a 2015 film directed by none other than Christopher Landon, Michael Landon's son, who also shares a writing credit in this along with two women, Emi Mochizuki and Carrie Lee Wilson. Now, the Carrie Lee Wilson and Emi Mochizuki don't actually have much to their names besides this. They've done some TV shows and some things like that. Christopher Landon, however, decided to go the screenwriting route, and he's written several horror movies and directed a few too. I think several of the Paranormal Activity sequels. I think he was also the writer of Disturbia as well, none of which I've ever seen before. This is the first film, I think, of his I've ever seen. And this is also the first time I'd seen it. Craig, how about you? Had you seen this one before?
Yeah, I think I read about this movie when it was being made, and so when it came out, I rented it and watched it, and I just remembered thinking that it was a lot of fun, really entertaining. And so when Jordyn brought it up, I thought it would be a fun one to do. We haven't done something kind of funny like this for a while, so I thought we'd give it a go.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, that's kind of how I would sum up. It is a fun movie. It's not without its problems, and honestly, there are parts of it that I think I was clearly not the target audience for this film. Mm-hmm. At times, this seemed like it didn't know whether it wanted to be a horror movie or a sex comedy, I think. And I have to say, at times, it rubbed me the wrong way because of it. But I think that's just my personal taste, to be honest,
Yeah, see, and I think I'm a 14-year-old boy at heart, so I think that it worked for me. I mean, it's the humor is lowbrow and corny, but it made me laugh.
Well, it starts out with I think it's a janitor in what seems to be the CDC or something like that. I think we later find out it's like a biotech industry of some kind, who's jamming out to Iggy Azalea, and he happens into a room with a guy who's working on something, obviously a serious scientist. The serious scientist goes out into the hallway to get a bag of Takis from the machine, and while he's struggling with that, the guy inside pokes around a little too much and comes across a body. This scene, I think, really just sets the tone for the film. He comes across this body, even after the guy said, don't touch anything. Of course, he goes in and starts touching things. And there's this body, looks like it's dead, but it's still hooked up to a machine and alive. And then he trips after the body jolts a little bit and falls all over the equipment, and that starts things going a little haywire. The equipment makes his heart flatline or whatever, and so he freaks out and he jumps on top of this, what we later learn is a zombie, and tries to give it CPR. And I think we all knew where this was going from the beginning.
Right.
He dumps Tic Tacs into his mouth because his mouth is super gross before he goes down to do that. And then as he's doing chest compressions on this thing, his hands go right into it. Like his whole chest cavity just caves in, and the zombie at this point also comes alive and takes this guy out, while the man in the hallway is still working with his arm in the machine now, trying to free the taquitos that are stuck in there. Zombie janitor kid then comes out and gets him too, and that sets the tone for the rest of the movie. And these are the kind of jokes we're going to get. Like you said, it's really lowbrow. But I'm fine with lowbrow humor. It doesn't bother me so much. Sometimes I really dig it. This movie was part and parcel, more or less, all lowbrow humor.
Yeah,
and cheap shots, I think. But with a lot of good zombie stuff in it, I mean, I got to say that much about it.
Well, and it ends up being a movie about teenage boys, and when like I said, I don't know that I ever really progressed all that far beyond that. Maybe that has something to do with why I'm perpetually in high school. Like that's who I have chosen to spend my life with is high school kids. And so the humor is just kind of funny. And that opening scene, I think, like you said, just really sets the tone. It's really goofy. This janitor's really goofy. He's really like just jamming out to this music. He's like putting his nipple up against the window trying to tease the scientist. And it's all just really goofy humor. But then, like you said, it gets to the zombie stuff and we get good zombie, gore and violence and that then sustains throughout the rest of the movie. This movie in tone is somewhat similar to a lot of other movies. It's kind of similar to Cooties, which we talked about, where there was a zombie outbreak in an elementary school. It's reminiscent of Zombieland in some places. I don't know if it's quite as clever as Zombieland, but it tries. And I think it's a pretty decent effort. The next thing that we cut to is this scouting promotional video, which is super hokey, and it stars Scout Leader Rogers, who ends up being the Scout leader in the movie, and who's played by David Koechner, who people would recognize. I mean, he's been in everything, but he was in The Office. He was an Anchorman. He was the goofy uncle in Krampus. And it looks like he's doing this recruiting thing, but really the only people who are watching are these three boys. And I say boys, they're, I would guess, like 16, 17?
Yeah.
They drive, so they're old enough to drive.
But they're entering their junior year, right? They're in their sophomore year, entering their junior year. Yeah. Right.
And it's these three kids who are going to be the central characters of the movie. Auggie, played by Joey Morgan, Carter, played by Logan Miller, and Ben, played by Ty Sheridan. And Auggie is kind of the big, kind of nerdy one. I mean, he seems like a nice kid, but he's not stereotypically good looking. And he's the one who's really into scouts. And then Carter is kind of the one who has clearly grown out of this, is way more into or interested in, kind of teenage rebellion. And then Ben, who kind of falls in the middle. Ben's kind of the nice, semi-popular kid. And arguably, I guess, Ben and kind of being the main character. But it's just these three guys who we're led to believe have been best friends since they were little kids, and they've been in scouts together since they were little kids. And I guess this night kind of marks a big night because Auggie is going to be getting his Condor badge, which I assume is the equivalent of kind of the Eagle badge in the Boy Scouts. And so they're going to be camping out to celebrate this. But we find out that Ben and Carter have kind of been plotting behind the scenes, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to tell Auggie that they're going to be quitting scouts. They kind of feel like they've outgrown it.
Yeah, and it's kind of a pathetic little scout troop. It's just the three of them, quite literally.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's like the rest of the scouts have gone on to other things and it's just these three who've stuck it with it all this time, or if the impression is that their over-enthusiastic scout leader Rogers just hasn't been able to recruit anybody else but these three. I mean, they're the ones who show up in the recruitment video that presumably he plays all the time. So either way, it's just these three guys in this scouting troop. So it's a little sad to begin with, but that also, this sort of thing is inevitable, right? Some of them are going to want to move on. And that's going to be awkward because it's only three of them.
Yeah, well, and I get the sense that that's fairly typical, and real life. Lots of little boys are in scouts, but they kind of, people drop off as time goes on, and it's really only the most dedicated who really stick with it, and very few people actually get the Eagle Scout, which I want to just say I find very admirable. You know, it's something that's not easy to do, and it does take a lot of time and dedication. And you know, good old Auggie, you know, he's clearly put in his time, and he's going to do this. But the other two are getting more interested in other things, like girls.
Come on, you've had fun.
Had fun, okay? Past tense, had, and now I am ready to move on. I mean, you realize it's going to be junior year next year. I mean, you know what that means, right?
Start thinking about college?
We start thinking about pussy, Ben. Come on, junior year is when all the girls become sluts.
Oh, really?
Yes, and if we're sitting here in these scout uniforms, it's going to be the male version of a chastity belt, Ben.
So, you know, priorities, come on.
It's
pretty funny.
I'd say it was about 10 minutes into this movie that I realized this was basically going to be cooties mixed with American Pie, you know?
Yeah.
And that's basically how it goes this whole time. It's Carter, and it plays with a little bit and mixes the zombies in with it a little bit and really goes out of its way sometimes to make a lot of these sex jokes in the midst of all this trauma and this turmoil still. You know, ooh, I get to see some boobies, you know, is kind of a...
Right.
Suddenly he stops in his tracks, you know, kind of thing. So that's the kind of movie it is. Carter and Ben are driving, and they hit a deer. And I just have to say, like, this is the best deer accident you could possibly hope for. It does
right.
It does almost no damage to the car, even though they hit this deer just flat on in the middle of the road. And the only thing that happens is the tire is flat, so they have to change it. And as they're changing this flat tire, up drives another car with the other characters we're going to see in the movie. One of them is Carter's sister, who we learn Ben has a serious crush on, and she's super sweet to him. And then there's a jerk, of course, because there has to be, guy named Jeff, who is her...
Played by Patrick Schwarzenegger.
No way!
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that. Oh my gosh. So he's the on-again, off-again boyfriend of Kendall, who is Carter's sister. And then there's another girl in there named Chloe. And so they're all chatting, and Carter's trying to hit on Chloe. In the meantime, Ben is cuting it up with Kendall. And at some point, Kendall mentions, well, looks like the deer got off better than the car. And he's like, what do you mean? And she turns, and it's gone. And the deer's gone. They think, oh, that's strange. And in the meantime, it turns out that as this other group speeds away, Carter comes back and says, yeah, you won't believe what happened. We got invited to the super secret senior party for the year. So this sets up kind of our main conflict between the main characters, aside from the zombies, is the sub-conflict between them. This is the same night that they're supposed to do the campout with Auggie so that he can get his badge. But they can't pass up this opportunity to be invited to this super secret seniors party where for sure Carter's going to get laid, 15 times over.
Right.
So that becomes sort of the second central conflict between those three people. It causes some drama and some group dynamics there.
Well, and the plan is that, and it's Carter's plan. Ben kind of feels bad about it. He wants to be a good friend. He's like, we can't miss this thing. And Carter's like, well, we'll go to the camp out, and then when Scout Leader Rogers and Auggie fall asleep, we'll just sneak out and we'll come back before morning so they'll never even know we were gone. They drive up to Carter's house, and we meet his grouchy neighbor, Mrs. Fielder, who's played by Cloris Leachman. And you can't go wrong with Cloris Leachman.
No, of course not.
Cloris Leachman is hilarious, and knowing that this is a zombie movie, you're just waiting. Like, come on, zombie Cloris Leachman, come on.
It's funny. She's mean and she's angry about them leaving the trash can in her yard. Just your stereotypical neighbor. But she also happens to be the crazy cat lady too.
Right. And you meet her for all of 5 seconds, so you know that this is just a setup for her to come back later, which of course it is, and it's pretty hilarious when she does come back. Then we see Scout Leader Rogers trekking through the woods, and he gets attacked by the zombie deer. But he uses his trusty lucky pocket knife to fight off the zombie deer, but then he's immediately also attacked by the scientist from the opening clip, and so we know that he's a goner.
I have to say, like, at this point, this movie's pretty typical. Like, the script is not super unique. I mean, yeah, it's got the scouts in it, but it's pretty derivative. It has all of what you expect in a teen movie. You know, the dorky friends who've got, you know, their bond together, but they're, you know, that's being tested. You have the hot girl that the one guy's lusting after. You have the super horny guy. You have the nerdy guy. You have the jerk, you know, who's the hot girl's currently entangled with. And honestly, even by the end of this movie, all this plays out exactly as it would play out in any other film as well. So it's predictable in that way. I guess the only twist here is the zombies are there.
Well, yeah, but you're right. I mean, if this were just a teen sex comedy, like if you took out all the zombies, things really would all probably play out the same way, you know, like, you know, the cute guy is going to get the girl in the end, you know, like, you know, there's going to be lots of boob jokes and stuff, you know, and that's how it plays out. But I have to say that's one of the reasons that I like this movie, is because I think that it melds those two genres so well. And frankly, the zombie genre is not my favorite genre in horror. I watch it all the time, but you've seen one zombie movie, you've kind of seen them all, really. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do with it. You know, I know that there have been, you know, like 28 Days Later, you know, kind of came up with the fast zombies. And so, like, you know, there's different approaches. I'm not saying they're all exactly the same, but a zombie movie is a zombie movie. Well, and
they all have the same
this
stakes.
Movie,
you know,
yeah,
it's always the same conceit. It's the world is going to be overrun by them, right? And so we're all trying to escape them and stop them from overrunning the world. It's sort of like how every superhero movie is exactly the same, right? The world's always in danger, the universe.
Right. And this one, I think it does a good job of putting these two kind of genres together, the teenage sex comedy, and it's got the best of both worlds, I guess is what I'm saying. It freshens up the zombie formula for me enough that it's entertaining.
Well, it's got a lot of unique elements that I haven't seen in other zombie movies, and that's really what you got to do, right? I mean, that's the challenge of anyone who's doing a zombie movie now, is how are you going to make some unique kills? How are you going to play around with the zombies? And with a comedy, you have even more leeway to go in directions that other zombie movies haven't gone yet, and there's plenty of that in this movie too.
Yeah, and I like some of the things that they did that you don't. I mean, it's not like you never see this, like, you know, the zombie deer. Usually in zombie movies, it's the people who are infected. You know, you've seen Evil Dead, you've seen, you know, like the zombie deer head and stuff. So it's not like these are entirely unique things, but unique enough that it stands out a little bit. The two boys, Carter and Ben, end up going to a convenience store because they want to have somebody buy them beer, and Carter gives money to this crazy homeless guy out front, who then goes in and acts crazy.
Stereotypical drunk homeless man. I have to say, I thought this whole scene was rather silly, and I have to knock down the movie a few pegs. I mean, I am fine with suspension of disbelief, and in comedies things are wild and raucous, but there was nothing realistic about this scene whatsoever. I mean, come on, man. They give this obviously overacting, almost offensively stereotypical homeless crackhead who just goes inside and it's all super loopy and like pulling random things off the shelf and piling them on. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is supposed to be funny. And then he runs in and starts arguing with this guy, which in front of the shop owner, you know, blows his cover completely. At this point, this woman walks by from across the street where there's a strip club, and the strip club's name is Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes.
That had me laughing.
I was
for 5
talking
minutes.
about this. Oh gosh, yeah, it is so funny. And I was talking about this last night, and I was trying so hard to come up with the name of the strip joint because I thought it was so funny. And I was like, I think it was something like Arabian Nights.
That works too.
but no, Lawrence of Arabia is pretty darn good.
It's so funny.
And yeah, they see this girl, Denise.
Costume party?
Oh, no, I'm a scout.
Like an actual scout?
Yeah, well, we got to camp out tonight. So you work across the street?
Yep. Glamorous, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I've never been in, but I hear it's nice. It's got a good Yelp review. What?
Nothing. You're really cute.
I don't recognize this girl. Her name is Sarah Dumont, but she's gorgeous. I mean, she's tall and beautiful and just looks like a badass. And he ties her strap with like a scout knot, and she's kind of impressed with him, or at least grateful for his help. And so she's like, "Oh, you guys are such amateurs. Just give me a second." And she goes inside and she gets the money from the crackhead and she buys them beer. And so, like, she's, obviously she's going to be the cool, badass girl who is going to help them up later. And she does. I think she's my favorite character. I mean, it doesn't hurt that she's really pretty to look at, but she plays the tough girl who takes no nonsense, who, she's not a damsel in distress. She can hold her own, and she's a cool character.
Yeah, she's like Rose McGowan from Planet Terror or something like that in this movie.
Yeah.
The next thing we get, basically, is a montage at the campsite. They all join up with Auggie, and there's a musical montage of them putting up tents and roasting marshmallows and having fun and whatnot.
Of course, they talk about where is Scout Leader Rogers, and Augie's like, well, he's never late, so I have a feeling he's just like testing me, like this is my test to get my badge or whatever. But this whole scene, even though it's really short, is actually really sweet, and that's another thing that I think that this movie does well, is establishing that these guys really are friends. They may be growing up, and they may be kind of growing apart a little bit, because, sometimes when you grow up, the friends that you had when you were little, you have different interests, whatever. But they clearly have history, and they have a close bond, and it's kind of cute. And Carter's got this thing where he takes selfies with everything. Like he took a selfie with the dead deer when they hit it, and he takes a selfie with Auggie when he hits him in the head with the marshmallow. And that's just kind of a running gag throughout. Like later on, he's taking selfies with the zombies and stuff. But I liked that, and I really like buddy movies, and especially when movies can really make me believe that the characters share these kinds of bonds. I'm a real sucker for that. Movies like, I think that it's very 80s. Movies like Stand By Me and The Goonies and Monster Squad. Where these kids, their strength ends up lying in their friendships. And so I appreciated that they took the time to kind of establish that, because then moving forward, these guys have to kind of look out for one another, and it's cute.
Yeah, and it's convincing. You're absolutely right. It is convincing. And Auggie and Ben share a scene, and I thought this was going to be significant in some way, where they mention Augie's dad, and I guess Augie's dad died. And they just have, more or less, it's just a generic tender moment. It's really, there's nothing going to be about Auggie not having a father that comes along later. What this is really to establish and solidify in our minds that bond between Auggie and Ben, and how much Ben actually cares for Auggie. Because when it comes time for Carter to wake up Ben to leave, Ben doesn't really want to go. He's really he didn't really want to go to the senior party in the first place. Again, Carter's priority is the women and all that stuff, and Ben's really, I think he just has a sight set for Carter's sister, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And so but he cares a lot about Auggie, and he seems to care about his feelings more, and that comes into play later on in the film as well. But they end up leaving, and they're trying to find this party, and we get to see a little bit of the party, and I don't know, man. This must be what a senior party is like in Deerfield, California. Like, in my school, people would all get together at somebody's house or something like that. But this is like a giant rave with professionally installed lights, professional DJs in what looks to be like an abandoned indoor swimming pool or something, out in the middle of nowhere. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, and like I went to some pretty good raves, I think, in college, but nothing compared to this. Like, this looks like what I would have, like, if you were a celebrity and you were going to a rave in Hollywood. Like, that's what, like, wall-to-wall gorgeous people, like, dancing and making out, like, flashing lights everywhere. I mean, I would definitely skip the Boy Scout camp out to go to this party.
Well, I was thinking, especially later on, when, the fact that this is a super secret party, so nobody but apparently all of the people there, the seniors who were there, like, know about it. I thought, no, this doesn't work, because all the vendors that had to come in and set up the lights and set up the sound system and all that stuff, they got paid. They would know that this was going on.
Oh, well. Carter and Ben leave, and they find the Scoutmaster's knife, and when they turn on the car and they turn on the headlights, Auggie is standing right there. Like, so they're obviously caught, and they have kind of this confrontation.
I thought we were best friends.
We are best friends.
We were coming back. Really? After your party? You know about that? Everybody knows about the senior party, Carter, even a loser like me.
Auggie, don't say that.
Why not? That's what you guys think.
No, we don't think you're a loser.
Man, just tell him.
Carter, no.
Yeah, tell me, Ben. Come on, say it. We're quitting Scouts, Auggie. Look, it was fun when we were kids. But we have to grow up, man.
Auggie, we're still gonna be best friends.
Go to your party.
Carter and Ben end up leaving, and they start driving through town, and they can't get any radio signal, and we've already seen that their cell phones aren't working quite right. I thought that, again, that was another thing. I liked this movie, period, but another thing that I liked about it was kind of the slow realization of what was going on. Like, there was the hint with the deer going away, and then then they can't get any radio signal. What's going on? And like, they're driving through town, and all of the town looks deserted. So they don't know what's going on right away, and they stop in front of that same convenience store where they were before, and Ben notices that the door to the convenience store is smashed, and he thinks that's weird. But then Carter realizes that the bouncer from Lawrence of Arabia is not standing in front of the door anymore, and he's like, this is our shot, the bouncer's gone, we gotta get in there. So they go in, and
in their scout uniforms.
Yeah. I mean, in the scout uniforms that they're in are like the scout uniforms that 5-year-olds wear, like the khaki shorts, and like oh gosh, it's and the the little neckerchief, like it's so cute or whatever. But then they go into the strip club, and I thought this was hilarious. I just loved it.
Yeah, the strip club's entirely empty. But the music's playing, the lights are going, and Ben sits down. I don't know what he was expecting. I think he just sits down in front of an empty pole in the middle of an empty room. And sure enough, a stripper comes out and walks down and does a bit of a pole dance in front of him. But as we can figure out by this point, it's a zombie stripper.
Right. When she comes up, she's lit from the back, and so you can't tell that there's anything wrong with her, and it's actually very sexy. And here's cute little innocent Ben sitting down at the end of the runway, and she comes down and she dances for him for a second, and it looks like she's gonna she's reaching out, like she's gonna bite him, but in a seductive way. And that's when Carter sits down, and Ben even says something like,
dude, something's wrong with her, look at her chest, what's all over her?
No, that's makeup, dummy. It's a jungle theme.
and then she sprays the blood out, like it's like when she goes upside down on the pole and like leans her head back, like her neck splits open, and sprays blood all over Carter, just like he's just covered in blood. And then the zombie bouncer shows up and chases them around, and it's pretty scary. But then Denise, badass Denise, shows up and saves the day and rescues them, and they get the heck out of there.
They come out and run for the car, and they have basically, it looks like half the town starts running towards them all of a sudden. As they try to get out of there, the spare tire on the car comes falling off because they did a really poor job, I guess, of installing it the first time. And they literally change the tire again while Denise is trying to hold off the rest of this zombie horde coming towards them, basically, with her shotgun. And they managed to do it, and they speed out of there. In the meantime, Auggie has gone by Roger's house. I guess, at this point, he's done camping, and he's looking for
by
him
himself.
and the joke here is that this scoutmaster has a thing for Dolly Parton, and his whole house is completely decked out in Dolly Parton memorabilia. I mean, from the curtains to the bed sheets. He even has like a Dolly Parton pinball machine in the living room, and then he goes in and eats some food, and then his stomach starts rumbling, so he's got to take a crap. And so again, you get more of this fart jokes, poop jokes. This is just not my kind of movie,
I thought that I knew watching this that is kind of how you would feel about it. I just think it's funny. I mean, even the whole Dolly Parton thing where the whole house is just like there's a Dolly Parton bust, and there are
that's hilarious,
life-size cutouts of her and paintings, and like it's just ridiculous. Like it's really stupid, but I just thought it was hilarious.
I like that part.
And Auggie sits down and is taking a crap, and like he smells his own crap and is like, oh, and so like there's a window directly behind him, and he opens it. And a zombie's like creeping up behind him as he's like wiping his butt and stuff. Like it's so juvenile. So am I, apparently, because I just thought it was really funny. It doesn't pretend to be anything that it's not.
No, for sure.
Like it takes that lame juvenile humor and it just runs with it. And sometimes movies try to be super, super clever, and I just kind of roll my eyes like, oh, I get it, you're super, super clever. And this one's just like, nope, we're just gonna go for poop jokes and boob jokes, and I'm down with that. I'm good with it.
For sure.
There were a couple when you said earlier that there were some parts that you were like that you just kind of couldn't tolerate. Immediately there was one part that came to mind, which we haven't gotten to yet, but I think I know what you were talking about. But
you know what?
I just thought it was so funny.
We'll get to that part, and we'll talk about that part, as it were.
And then so what's his name? The scout leader shows up. And of course, Auggie quickly realizes that he's a zombie, and they fight. But like when they're fighting, Auggie like trips over the CD player, and so it comes on, and so this whole zombie fight is soundtracked to Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. Which
I know.
It's so funny.
That was funny. I mean, I'm not saying everything in here was totally juvenile. Some of it was really funny and clever. But then what does he do? Like the bust of Dolly Parton falls down on him, and he uses the bust as a weapon, and it turns out, so he holds the bust up, and then the zombie goes face first into the bust of the bust. Like, oh,
right, like motorboats.
Motorboats, the bust.
Oh God, that's not even as bad as when we get back to Cloris Leachman. That was a part I didn't even really understand, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Oh man. So anyway, Auggie, uses like a can of WD-40 and a lighter to torch Rogers, and then he ties them all up. And then we get back to the other boys who are now teamed up with Denise, and I guess they go to like the community center or the police station. I guess it's the police station.
It's the sheriff's office.
And there's a sign that says all evacuation buses have departed. So they're going to go back to the car, but the car is surrounded by zombies, so they end up running into the police station, and there's a zombie cop in there, and then the whole zombie horde gets in there. And so they end up locking themselves in a jail cell. And it's one of those jail cells that I really believe only exists in movies and television shows where, it's just like a cage in the middle of like the sheriff's office or whatever.
A literal cage, yeah.
But I really liked this. I thought that it was kind of a clever little twist that they're just in this cage and the zombies are like reaching in trying to get them, and so they just kind of have to huddle in the middle where the zombies can't get them, and eventually they're like bored and they're just hanging out and talking, and the zombies are all around, and Carter's like taking selfies with the zombies. And, it was just I thought it was funny. They have a little heart to heart in there, like it's cute.
It saw that coming a mile away too. It's one of these parts of the movies they gotta somehow give them a break so they can sit down and have their heart to heart and move the characters along a little bit before they get back into the action. But yeah, they do that and have a discussion about Auggie, and basically Denise is their conscience. Denise is the one who's trying to tell them. Again, it's that stereotypical thing: the badass, street smart girl who's seen it all, who's
the heart of gold.
Now, and also like wiser than anybody else because of it, right? Tells them that they need to. How could they do that to their friend? Then they use Carter's condoms to get out of jail. I'm just telling you, man. Carter, get your condoms
I'll give you.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. That one was pretty silly. They fly fish with the condoms.
That was really
successfully.
Quite literally, that was reaching. I'm sorry, but it was reaching in two senses.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. The movie's not realistic at all. Like, everybody always shows up exactly when they should, and so Auggie shows up at this point, and he distracts the zombies to get them out, and there's some silly slapstick comedy about they successfully fly fish the keys with the condoms, but then Auggie comes in and like kicks the keys into a hole or something. But he gets them out and they go running off, and they're being chased by all these zombies, and they go through this fence or like a gate or something, and they close the gate, but they close the gate just after they've seen this female cop before, and she's this female before she was a zombie, and it's this female cop with these huge boobs. And when they close the gate, it's like she got through, but her shirt got caught on the gate, so her shirt just rips open, and these huge zombie boobs come flopping out. And like it goes to slow-mo to show these boobs just kind of like bouncing in the wind, and like Carter's face is just like, he's huge and wide-eyed, and it's kind of a long shot just on these giant boobs, and then everybody else is running, and Carter's just kind of standing there looking at them, and then they're like, "Come on, Carter!" And just real quick before he runs off, he just grabs her boobs and like squeezes them for a second, and then he starts running off with them, and he's like, I felt them. I don't think they were real." Oh, it's so juvenile. It's so 13-year-old boy, and I just thought it was so funny. I laughed out loud at that one. Giant zombie boobs.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Does the car break down, or they just stop? I can't remember why they encounter that Britney Spears singing zombie in the middle of the road.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the crackhead from the convenience store, but now he's a zombie, and this, it's hit and miss. I like silly, stupid humor, but this part they probably could have cut out. I don't even really I don't really get it. Like, they confront this crackhead zombie, and Auggie is like, oh, it's just like in the wild when you face an aggressive animal, you have to intimidate them. So he starts trying to yell at the zombie, and then the zombie starts mimicking him. And then he notices that the zombie is wearing a Britney Spears t-shirt, so he starts singing "Hit Me Baby One More Time" to it, and the zombie starts singing it, and so then it's like a "Hit Me Baby One More Time" sing along for a minute. Oh, okay. And then a hot black soldier shows up.
Yeah, that's right.
Out of nowhere, and kills that zombie and takes them off, and he's only there for a second, and he's only there so that we can find out that at 3 a.m. they are going to bomb the whole town. The military is going to bomb the whole town. But the boys, instead of wanting to get away, they want to get to this senior party because they say, so you've evacuated the whole town? And the soldier's like, yeah, we've evacuated the whole town. And they're like, even the people at the party? And the soldier's like, what party?
I understand they'd had to do this, and this is just, we're going to go with it. But I just want to point out how ridiculous this is.
Sure.
This whole town got evacuated in a matter of a few hours, and that all of the parents of the hundreds of kids that are at this party just left without them. Nobody knew or cared enough to, find out where these kids were.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you're absolutely right. It is, and that's the other thing too. Like, if you want to enjoy this movie, you're going to have to get over the fact that the script is really contrived. Like, because they don't know where the party is. But Carter remembers that his sister Kendall writes everything in her journal. So he's positive that she would have written where it is in her journal. So they've got to go back to his house to find her diary. And so they do. And that's where they, of course, then encounter zombie Cloris Leachman.
Oh, man. That was crazy. She's still peering out of her window at the neighbors like she was before. But she's a zombie now. And while they're looking for the diary, she comes over and breaks into the house. And as they're fighting with her, I guess they knock her dentures out. And so at one point, she's overcome Carter. And she's super strong. Like, that's part of the humor of this that really works, I think, is that this old lady, because she's a zombie, of course, like has a so she's throwing these kids around, and she gets Carter face down on the sofa, and I guess has pulled his pants down in the struggle, and bites his butt, and I thought, oh my gosh, Carter's gonna die. I didn't expect that. But because her dentures were knocked out earlier, all that Carter says is, my ass! My ass! She's coming! My ass!
It's so gross and so stupid. Like she is just face deep in his butt crack. It's just ridiculous. So then the zombies are all coming for them, and they're up in Kendall's room, and the only way that they can get out is there's a trampoline underneath the window, and they're like, we can jump out on the trampoline and jump over the 10-foot wall to next door.
I have to say, the trampoline scene was cool. The notion, like, he leans out the window and there's a zombie that's been bouncing on the trampoline the entire time, and he comes up and grabs him and starts to pull him out. And they have to pull, Ben back in. I thought that was a really neat idea, to have this sort of trampoline be their means of escape, but also be a way that the zombies are getting to them. That was unique. Like we said earlier, you got to find these unique things to do with the zombie genre. And being a comedy, they have a little more leeway, and so of course throwing a trampoline and zombies on a trampoline was entertaining.
Yeah, it was funny. Apparently, it was inspired by some video game, one that I'd never heard of, but apparently that was an escape route in some video game, so they used it. And it was. Like you said, it's not something you've seen 100 times, which is nice in a zombie movie. I forgot, I skipped over the part where, again, we have to take a moment for characters to have a heart-to-heart, and Ben and Denise have a heart-to-heart where she's trying to get him to man up, and like she finds out that he's got a crush on Kendall. And
don't take this the wrong way, but you have to man up.
Yeah, but I suck at being that guy. I'm not assertive like that.
Kiss me.
What?
Don't what me, just do it. Kiss me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. I saw you checking out my ass earlier. I know you want to do it. Just kiss me.
No, I wasn't.
Ben.
Okay, for a second I did.
Kiss me.
And they do, and it's cute. And she's like, pretty good. Next time you see Kendall, just lay that on her, and everything will be cool.
Terrible advice, by the way.
Right. That's exactly what girls want. Just walk up to him.
Just walk straight up to him. Yeah.
Right. But so everybody else jumps out the window, but Ben is the last one. And right at the last second, the diary falls out of a drawer or something, and the zombies are coming in. But he grabs the diary. He goes to jump out of the window, but I feel like the zombies kind of grab him, so he kind of loses his bearings, and he turns around and he just grabs onto the first thing he can grab onto, and he realizes then when he's dangling there on the ledge that he's holding on to this old zombie's dick.
And it's stretching.
Yeah,
as he's leaning out the window.
Carter's like, hold on to that cock, Ben! And then Ben falls out of the window, and it's like a shot-for-shot remake of when Hans Gruber falls out of the building at the end of Die Hard. It's slow motion.
Except if Hans Gruber had a ripped-off zombie dick in his hand as he was doing it.
Right.
And I have to say, Craig, as much as I know this is the scene you were talking about, by the way, that I would have an opinion about, and as much as this is like super juvenile, by now I knew what kind of movie this was. I was on board with it, and I was even thinking again the same lines. Well, I've never seen this before, so I got to give him that kind of credit. I mean, I don't know if anybody else would have the guts to do this, but then they just go the extra mile, and as soon as he's at the other side of the fence, he tosses the dick back over the fence, and it lands in another zombie's mouth.
Of course it does.
Like, come on, really?
The only other place it could have landed would have been between the zombie cop's boobs. That would have been the only other...
No, it wouldn't have been the only other place. There are like maybe 4 options there, to be honest. But like, I'm like, did this... I mean, I know the script was written for 12-year-olds. Was it written by 12-year-olds as well?
Maybe.
Come on.
Oh, God, it's funny.
It does go the extra mile.
So then they end up in Cloris Leachman's house, and this was hilarious to me because there's a moment with Cloris Leachman's zombie cats. The zombie cats attack, and they're like, they're these cheap looking. It just looks like one of them is crawling up Augie's back, and I can just imagine that there was just somebody behind him, like holding this stuffed thing, and it like shakingly comes up behind his back. It's like,
it's not the best effect in the world.
No, but they run away, and Denise goes off like she's going to go get help, and then the 3 boys go to the party, and that's where the big kind of final showdown takes place. There's a gross zombie eating out a girl gag, and that's how the zombie plague spreads in the party, and then it's just pandemonium. And I guess I skipped first because they're not Boy Scouts, because they're scouts. They're prepared, so they go to the hardware store and they totally arm up with like all these badass homemade weapons. Like they do something with a weed whacker, and they've got nail guns and all kinds of stuff, and so they just are armed to the teeth with all this stuff, and then they go to the party, and that's where the final showdown is.
It's a lot like From Dusk Till Dawn, actually. That was the first thing that came to mind. It was like From Dusk Till Dawn and also Peter Jackson's movie Dead Alive, where it's just a complete zombie slaughter with power tools, and that was cool. It was actually a really neat scene, I thought. Really well shot, really seemed big, and these guys come in and they save the day. Ben ends up rescuing Kendall. They end up evacuating the whole building, but the building's still filled with zombies, and so they tie off the door, and the 3 of them go upstairs. They're going to have to find an alternate route because they want to save the rest of the people from the zombies. So they go upstairs, and there's no other way out. And so that's when Auggie reveals that he's also made a bomb. And I think, Carter says, "What are you, the Taliban?" Because that's kind of what they're going to have to do. They come to the decision quite easily that they're all just going to blow themselves up along with the zombies to save the rest of the group. And they have a heart-to-heart moment here where everybody kind of comes clean, and then right at the last minute,
it's cute. I thought it was really cute. Like they're trying to get the bomb started, but the lighter won't work, and so Auggie is trying to light it with a flint, like a scout. And Carter turns to Ben and says, "Would it be totally lame if I held your hand right now?" And Ben's like, "No." And so they hold hands. I mean, it's a silly, stupid little gag, but it's cute. They're friends. It's a scary moment. But of course, everything works out fine.
Yeah. Denise comes in at the last minute, pops open something in the corner, which turns out to be like a garbage chute. And she's like, hey, what are you guys doing up here? Get your asses out here already. And so they all jump out and slide out the garbage chute just as the building, Auggie manages to light it, the fuse, and dives out, and they all get out just as the building is exploding. And that's the end. I mean, there's again, exactly what you'd think. They all kind of make up at the end. Ben ends up walking up to Augie's sister and plants the big kiss on her, which, of course, is hugely successful. And, go to credits, basically.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the military shows up, and it seems like they've got everything under control.
I guess they decided they're not going to bomb it after all. That kind of goes by the wayside.
When they first get out of the building that the dance was in, they encounter the camp master again, and they blow him up. But then, you get the happy ending with Ben getting the girl and all that good stuff, and then there are the credits, and the credits are really funny because the first part of the credits play over all of the selfies that Carter has taken throughout the movie, in addition to many, many pictures that he didn't actually take. But it's funny. And then there's just a mid-credits scene where it, is panning up to this building that the final explosion is at, and you just see Scoutmaster Rogers' head, and it's just like, the end.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, if you're not going to come up with something clever for a post-credit scene, you really shouldn't do one at all.
I don't know. It made me chuckle. I don't know. I gotta say, I thought this movie was it was fun. And, it's an hour and a half long. It's not too long. And it's really fast-paced. I mean, it doesn't lag at all. There are things going on all the time. As far as zombie movies go, it's not the goriest one I've ever seen, but there's a good amount of gore. The zombies look good. They look really good. They look like, good zombies from a good zombie movie. There's violence, there's scares. I like the humor. I can totally see how the humor would be off-putting to probably a lot of people, because it is really lowbrow. It's really juvenile. But if you like movies like American Pie, or even like John Hughes movies, I think that the humor works. It just I don't love it. It's not like it's my favorite movie or even one of my favorite movies, but just for entertainment value, I think it's good. I would recommend it.
I'd recommend it too, and I have to say I had fun watching it too. And I'm going back and listening to my comments, thinking about my comments now, and I probably sound to our listeners like my dad, like, I don't know, this humor is just a little too lowbrow for me. I just need to make it clear that I enjoy a good sex comedy. I don't mind lowbrow. Sometimes I enjoy lowbrow, and I don't mind if it goes kind of crazy. But I guess maybe in that case, I want my movies a little compartmentalized. And when you combine the super lowbrow, super juvenile stuff with this zombie movie that I just wasn't expecting, and maybe too because it's got Boy Scouts in it, and I guess I just had a different expectation for this film going in, then it just came across to me as a little misogynistic, in the watching of it. And, in retrospect, having watched it now and having talked about it, they probably sat down and said, hey, why don't we take a teen sex comedy and combine it with the zombie movie, Right. And that was probably the conceit from the very beginning. I just don't, and maybe it's because we've had like Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland and a lot of these other movies that have followed it or shortly come before it. It didn't work for me. It was just a little off. It was a little off-putting. I don't know. But that's just, honestly, it's just my personal opinion. I think other people are just like you are just going to think it's fine. It's totally my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, it does, I mean, it's only got a 46% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics didn't love it. It's not like this. I don't know if it has any kind of cult following. I've certainly not seen anything about it. I think it's something that's kind of flown under the radar. I guess kind of the last thing that I would want to say about it is part of the reason that I liked it is because I thought that the actors did a really good job. I mean, I really liked these characters. I found the characters to be really endearing. All three of the boys, even Carter, who was kind of supposed to be the jackass of the group, the dynamic between the three boys, and then you get Denise in there too, who's really cool. I really liked the characters. You know, I liked spending time with them. They didn't get on my nerves. I wasn't hoping that they would die. You know, like I think that was a big part of why I liked it, was the performance of the main characters. Had it been poorly acted, then I think I would have just rolled my eyes and said this is dumb. But I found the main characters really endearing, and I think that was a big part of why I liked it.
I can see that. I think for me, just compared to, we have so many other movies almost exactly like this. You know, Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland. You know, I can rattle them off. And so I think the fact that they're so funny and those other ones are just so clever that it almost feels like another movie following in its footsteps or in the same genre has a lot to look up to. And this one kind of took a different route and went extremely lowbrow. And maybe that's just why I knock it down and kind of consider it more of a middling movie than the others. But again,
and I agree with you. I don't think it's as good as those movies, but I still liked it.
And it was fun talking about it.
It was.
Well, thank you again for listening to another episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere you find your favorite podcast. We're also on Facebook. We have a page there. You can like us. You can let us know what you thought of this movie and also recommend other movies for us to do. We are done with Request Month now. We're going to be moving into, as is our tradition every year, some holiday-themed movies for December, coming into the new year of 2018. Also, we have written movie reviews that go up every Thursday on our website. Until next week, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.